Mexico.
Likely making landfall as a Category 1 hurricane at some point on Wednesday.
It was kaboom!
Hear from survivors of the latest tornado outbreak in Oklahoma.
I don't want to go anywhere. I want to go back here.
Powerful winds churn up massive waves in Washington's Puget Sound.
This is as big as I've ever seen it.
Plus important information to help you weatherize your home.
If we can keep the cold air out, it'll feel a lot warmer.
And what you should do with all those leaves after raking.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. Election Day is finally here. While we may not know who won the presidential race before midnight, we do know what the weather will be across the nation today, and it could play a role in turnout in some of those battleground states. Meteorologist Jordan Evans has details.
Tracking your forecast on this election day, still tracking that storm system over the Great Lakes all the way down through the Mid-South. In fact, a severe weather threat for places like Louisiana and Mississippi. Some heavy rain possible for places like Memphis to Chicago, and some gusty winds, Wisconsin to Michigan. But overall, most of the country looking dry. The East Coast looking at sunshine and passing clouds along with the desert Southwest. Some higher elevation snow across places like Montana to Idaho with cooler temperatures into the 40s. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Jordan Evans.
This isn't the only year weather could play a role in Election Day turnout. Emily Gracie spoke to a political scientist to find out how weather has impacted elections of the past and how it could impact this race as well.
We've seen historically, there are several papers that show that when it rains or snows on Election Day, there's a dividend for Republicans. In the past, Republicans have been older, wealthier, college educated, and more likely to have not only a history of voting, but are what I would call hardier voters. Starting in 2000 through, of course, 2024, many more states have adopted in-person early voting. And as a consequence of that, particularly in the South and Southwest, when there has been bad weather, the dividend has been not only reduced, but almost reversed.
Going back to Helene, do you think that the lack of power and trees covering roads and roads washed out in some of these communities is going to actually sway the election?
Yeah, I do. I'll give you two examples of that. And it goes two ways. You just described what gets in the way: a tree, a building that you were going to vote at and you can't vote at. Second, the people that work at the polls, they're just as affected. There may not be anybody to actually run an election for you. But maybe the most important one, my third one, is you got other things to worry about. You have children, you have family, you have homes, you have possessions. It's not the first thing on your mind.
Do you think in the opposite direction that people are ever inspired by big weather events to go out and vote? Like, this is the candidate that showed up after the disaster, so I'm going to go vote for them. Or these extreme weather events are getting bigger and worse, and we need somebody who's going to do something about climate change.
It's a reasonable hypothesis. And those of us who study elections will watch it. No, I don't think people are going to say, oh, my God, it's all post global warming. We've got to cut down on fossil fuels. I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. Maybe there's two people out there, but I think the first thing on their minds is, can I get through the day? Can I get my food? Can I get my medicine? Can I get my kids to school?
And you can hear much more about how weather and climate can impact voter turnout and election outcomes on this week's episode of our podcast, Off the Radar. Find it anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And can the weather predict the outcome of the election? According to meteorologist Doug Harlow, it can. He says rain in West Virginia has been an accurate predictor for years now. Take a look at this.
Well, over the last several months, we've had polls and surveys, some saying one thing, others saying another, a lot of conflicting information, but nobody's been checking to see what the West Virginia weather was going to be on Election Day, because that's been a pretty consistent predictor going back to 1976. So on the left, we have the days where it was dry, no measurable rain in the Charleston, Huntington, West Virginia metro areas. On the right, those were days on Election Day when we did have rain, going back to 1976. And look how this correlates with who won the election. On the days where there was no rain, the Democrat candidate won. On the days where there was rain, the Republican won. The only exception was in 1996. 100th of an inch of rain fell in Charleston. That was it. And Bill Clinton did happen to win, but it barely rained that day. Otherwise, this has been a pretty consistent predictor. Now, there's no scientific basis for any of this whatsoever. It's just a fascinating coincidence, but certainly interesting nonetheless. The forecast, incidentally, for West Virginia for Tuesday on Election Day is for record warmth, but no rain.
And tracking the tropics this morning, Tropical Storm Rafael formed in the Caribbean Sea on Monday. Over the next few days, it is expected to strengthen into a hurricane and move into the Gulf of Mexico. Meteorologist Evan Chikvera has more.
So it is a tropical storm here this morning. It's very close to Jamaica. It will move north just to the west of Montego Bay, likely making landfall as a Category 1 hurricane at some point on Wednesday. Call it right around noon. Then where we get interested is when this moves into the Gulf. So I've left this graphic here because I just think it illustrates this well. The steering winds for this are going to be out of the east to southeast. So it's pushing this storm, what's left of Rafael, into the western Gulf. Well, your winds aloft are out of the west. That is, going against the motion of this storm. So that wind shear should weaken it very quickly here.
And preliminary reports now show 5 tornadoes hit Oklahoma over the weekend. 11 people are injured and at least 100 homes were damaged. Some of the most significant damage is in the city of Hera. That's where an EF3 tornado with winds of up to 165 miles per hour struck. At one point, though, yesterday, people living there were urged to leave as crews worried if the homes that were still standing were even stable. Another twister hit Oklahoma City. David Casanova introduced us to a man who says he barely survived that storm.
It happened almost like instantaneously. There wasn't much of a preamble. There wasn't no train. It was kaboom!
Peter Manchev was reading a book early Sunday morning when a tornado touched down in his neighborhood near Southeast 89th and Sooner Road.
Things collapsing, falling down. That's another bedroom. Bam, bam, bam. That's it. Bam!
His wife was asleep at the time.
My first reaction is check my wife, make sure she didn't get hurt.
Fortunately, she survived.
This is my wife, Janie. Hi. She's the one that almost didn't make it.
Manchev's cats Twinkie and Bob survived, and so did his dog Mimi.
Our kids are taking care of our pets, but for us, our pets are our kids. We miss them.
The koi fish in his backyard pond are also okay.
We got 3 koi. They're still there, still alive.
Now Manchev and his loved ones are working to save the house he's lived in since 1987.
And check out the winds that were blowing on Washington State's Puget Sound yesterday. Gusts nearing 60 miles per hour sent massive waves crashing into an island in the Sound. Denise Whitaker was there to show us the power of Mother Nature.
Some of these waves are coming in at 5 and 6 feet tall.
Paul Farler went beach hopping in the midst of this windstorm hitting Whidbey Island. The American flag at a beach house on Moran Beach looked like it was heavily starched. But it was West Beach at Deception Pass State Park that Farler told me really impressed him.
The parking lot's filling up with foam and logs and everything.
The evidence from years of storm surges clearly visible where the beach meets the parking lot. The number of Puget Sound Energy customers losing power climbed from only a few hundred to more than 10,000 at one point.
When we're watching these crash, what do you think they are?
I saw some waves that were at least 8 feet. It's like I say, I'm not here all the time during the storms, but this is as big as I've ever seen it.
The winds here holding steady at 30 miles an hour or greater, with gusts nearing 60 miles per hour, hitting more than just the waves. Park rangers stayed on patrol for everyone's safety while storm watching.
Yeah, I hope nobody's out on the water today.
Wind isn't the only weather story in Washington state. There was significant snowfall in the Cascades. Up to 18 inches fell at higher elevations. A viewer now sent us these photos from a hike to the top of Mount Townsend, which did not get as much snow as other areas. And we'd, of course, love to see your weather photos. You can send them via Chime In on this station's website or app, or send them to us via your favorite social media platform. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll look at the National Weather Desk. We'll look at what you can do now to make sure your home is ready for the winter months ahead, plus tips on how to get rid of all of those fall leaves.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. It is going to be a mild election day in the Northeast. Look at these temperatures this afternoon, surging into the 60s and 70s. A weak front moved through overnight. Any leftover clouds, they'll start to break up. This is 2:30 in the afternoon today. Notice the lack of clouds. It should be a beautiful sunny afternoon and a mild afternoon. A second front moves through on Wednesday. There's the chance for a shower that day, but it stays warm and windy with highs again in the 70s. Enjoy.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Things are going to start out with just a few clouds on your election day, but sunshine towards your afternoon, staying nice and dry through your Wednesday most likely. But there is a front approaching that will likely give us a small chance for some showers, but not until late Wednesday night into Thursday. Temperatures will be warming up, 70s practically everywhere except for the mountains, and will be even warmer coming Wednesday, with temperatures possibly reaching as warm as 80 degrees.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Charlotte Carl. High temperatures this afternoon kind of all across the board. We are going to be in the upper 70s in the northern part of the area, 60s in Asheville, also 60s in Little Rock. That is because a frontal boundary will be moving across the area, also increasing the potential for active and severe weather, especially in the western portion of the area throughout your Tuesday afternoon into or Wednesday early morning. Definitely a day you want to stay weather aware. Scattered showers pretty much everywhere else.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Images of dawn from Charleston, West Virginia to Albany, New York. A bit more sunlight revealed this shallow, thin steam fog near Providence, and a vibrant rainbow over Abilene after much needed and rare soaking rain. From liquid to solid precipitation and this first snow in the mountains near Redding, California.
Listen to Off the Radar. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Winter is right around the corner. In places with extreme climates, experts are recommending, of course, that you weatherize your car. That means making improvements to keep yourself warm and to also save money at the same time. Grant Palmer has more.
As wintertime is approaching, some homeowners like Daniel Lucas are taking the opportunity to batten down the hatches and weatherize. And in order to keep the cold air out, specialists do a number of things to your home.
We look to depressurize the home and make sure that we seal up the house, caulking around windows and doors, checking your attic for insulation, adding it where there is, and also HVAC tune-ups within your furnace and HVAC systems.
Cooper says by doing this, not only do you make your home more comfortable, but it helps you save money as well, which was a big reason why Lucas chose to weatherize.
I couldn't believe that my electric bill. So I said, I have to talk to somebody about this. See, maybe it's not reading it right or something's wrong. Mm-hmm. And then that's when I called OG&E, and they said that, yeah, we have these programs, we can help you out.
Cooper says weatherizing your home won't put much strain on your HVAC systems, which is the biggest driver of increased energy costs for most homeowners.
Well, have you ever noticed signs ahead of bridges and overpasses that say bridges freeze first when it gets cold? Do you know why this is the case? Meteorologist Teresa Carter explains.
You will hear us say all the time, watch those bridges and overpasses for slick spots. But why do bridges and overpasses freeze first? Well, as the air temperature decreases, the surface of both roads and bridges will begin to cool down. Bridges will cool more quickly and ice will form faster on bridges for several reasons. One reason is that they are exposed to cold air from all sides, unlike roads, which lose heat only from their surface and retain some warmth from the ground underneath. Secondly, bridges also freeze rapidly because many of them are located over cold spots like frozen rivers or deep ravines. And the third reason is the materials used in bridge construction, such as steel and concrete, are good heat conductors, causing bridges to lose heat more rapidly than asphalt roads. Bridges often quickly reach the general air temperature, so when the thermometer reaches 32 degrees, the bridge will freeze. So remember, just because the roads seem clear, bridges could be a different story.
The shorter days and colder temperatures don't just impact your house and also the roads. It can also trigger a form of depression tied to seasonal changes known as SAD, or seasonal affective disorder. Lee Stoll has more.
For many people, the seasonal switch can be a sign of a tough time to come.
Seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, it's a form of clinical depression that follows a seasonal pattern where the depression symptoms are in effect during certain seasons of the year, and they resolve in the opposite seasons of the year.
What causes seasonal affective disorder? Scientists are learning how specialized cells in our eyes turn the blue wavelength part of the light spectrum into neural signals affecting mood and alertness. Sunlight is loaded with blue light.
There are many helpful treatments for seasonal depression. They include antidepressant medications, bright light therapy, and cognitive behavioral talk therapy.
Bright light therapy involves devices that emit light about 20 times brighter than regular indoor light. Researchers suggest using them for 30 minutes every morning.
Try to get outside as much as possible. There's plenty of light to be had in the wintertime. You just have to dress appropriately.
There is a summer version of seasonal depression, but less is known about it.
Fall is still here, and many of us are still raking up those leaves as well. And it may seem like a real workout, and for good reason. You may be surprised to learn just how much those leaves actually weigh. Meteorologist Eric Kostreva has more.
This is kind of a PSA just to be extra careful, especially when you bag everything up, because surprisingly, these leaves can be very heavy. When you think about it, just the weight of the leaves. The average tree, at least a mature oak tree, has about 200,000 leaves. And once all of those are on the ground, about 360 dry leaves is about 1 pound. So when we think about one tree, it's about 550 pounds of leaves. And if it's been raining in your area, wet leaves can multiply the weight by 4. So we might be talking about 2,200 pounds of leaves from one tree in your backyard, especially if those leaves are wet. So it's fun to jump into them because it's kind of like a mattress. It gives you a little bit of a bounce back if you were to pile all the leaves up and jump into them. But once you're clearing them, be extra careful out there.
So do you know what to do after you rake up all those leaves? Meteorologist Trevor Robidell gives us one option.
The best thing you could do would be to designate an area and build some sort of containment, basically a bin, whether that's out of some old pallets. You can even use like snow fencing if you're just doing a temporary one, but essentially make an area where you can pile up the leaves.
This containment will allow the leaves to compost in a defined area without having the mess all over your yard. While some may think it's best to burn them because it's easy, the truth is this may be one of the worst options of them all.
The reason it's superior to burning would be that when you burn, you are adding carbon to the atmosphere. And, we're all worried about climate change. But the other part of that, too, is, just the smoke, depending on where you live, might be bothering your neighbors, might be a nuisance to somebody. And you might even have local ordinances that say you can't burn.
According to the DNR and High Day, the best option is to leave them and do nothing, as this is beneficial for small insects and animals that use them as a temporary home for the winter.
It is such an important habitat for our local insects and wildlife. There's so many species that will spend their entire winters in our backyards, whether we see them or not. And that leaf litter acts as this perfect protective layer for them in the snow and colder temperatures.
From bumblebees and luna moths to frogs and salamanders, leaves are essential for all aspects of the ecosystem to thrive through the winter into spring.
While it may seem like these are just piles of leaves, they really are the base of the food chain, and they're super important, not only for pollinators and insects, but all the way up to some of our top predators, things like eagles or black bears or coyotes, these places where pollinators and small mammals can overwinter and really have their populations remain safe.
So if you're wondering what to do, consider putting away the rake for the fall and embrace leafy chaos.
And time now for a short break, but first we soar over northern Michigan.
Well, a very good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. For Election Day today, we do have some rain moving its way across the Midwest here. That will continue moving its way into the Ohio Valley for your Wednesday tomorrow and cooling down behind that. A lot of high temperatures in the 50s on Wednesday. By the time that we get to your Thursday, dry for most of the Midwest, but temperatures still staying cool. A lot of 50s and 60s.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. Starting off really cool this morning from Amarillo, Midland, back on over into El Paso, into the 40s and 30s. Everybody else sitting into the 60s. Some leftover showers, thunderstorms will push through South Texas and move through into Louisiana during the day. Cooler, drier air filters in, and that means temperatures will be much cooler on day 2. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia, and that's a look at your regional weather.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a good Tuesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. Skies are looking brighter for Election Day around Puget Sound and the Willamette Valley as the sun bounces back for Seattle and Portland after a really stormy start to the work week on Monday. Vegas at 69, just 29 today out of Jackson Hole, and it's because of this weather maker. Big area of low pressure pushing over the Bitterroots and into the Rockies and Continental Divide for heavy snow throughout the day. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
And you may have noticed things seem a bit windy lately. It's common this time of the year. Meteorologist Jeff Exline has more on autumn winds.
Fall, and especially in the wintertime, you can have some gusty winds. Meanwhile, in the summertime, you can't even buy yourself a breeze on a hot summer's day. Well, the main reason, couple reasons, are the jet stream. The jet stream typically vacations to our north in the summer. Thus, the high winds aloft are to our north, and we have light winds aloft, thus light winds at the surface. But during the fall, winter, and spring season, the jet stream sags further south into the United States, and sometimes we can tap into those high winds aloft and bring them down to the surface. And thus, that's why the winds can be stronger during fall, winter, and spring. Also, when you look at a surface map, look at the isobars. When the isobars are tightly packed, that means it's going to be windy. Those are lines of equal pressure. So a lot of times as a cold front approaches or pushes through, you'll see the pressure either rise or fall rapidly. Thus, that is going to lead to big pressure changes and stronger winds.
And thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Tuesday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.